My name is Stephen Rafferty. You're watching/listening to These Are Questions. This is the interview show where I ask people questions about things, life, and such not. And today we are here at the Colab Studios here in Miami, Florida, and we are recording various episodes of the show. And today I am with a very talented podcaster and a media creator. She's focusing on her podcast, the Scenior Citizen Podcast. Please welcome the lovely Vicky Salas.
Yay! How are you?
Good. Welcome to These Are Questions.
No, thank you for having me. I'm excited. The tables are turned.
Yes, the tables are turned. You're on the other side now just interviewing for the show instead of just giving the actual interviews for today's show. So welcome to These Are Questions. I greatly appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with me for this episode of the show. We're going to get right into the episode itself by going with our intro here. So I'm going to ask you very straight away. Vicky, I'm going to ask you a series of questions. It's going to be based around your career and aspirations, along with a mixture of questions that are borderline idiotic and, well, randomly stupid. Do you accept those terms?
I accept.
Okay.
Let's do this.
Let's do this. Rocking and rolling. Vicky, are you ready?
I hope so.
I hope so too. I hope so.
Hit me. Come on.
No, I'm going to get in trouble. No, this is a clean professional podcast. We're not going to be hitting anybody. These are fights or these are hits. These are questions. Yes. Internet, are you ready? Going to take that. Just take that space.
I think audience is yes.
Yeah. They say C. Yes, C. Yes. With that in mind, let's begin our interview. So, as mentioned in our interview so far, just thank you so much for being a part of These Are Questions. I greatly appreciate it. I've had the chance to watch some of your episodes of the show, and it's really, really cool, and I like the concept and idea behind it. But I want to know more about the person behind the scenes, the person creating the show, specifically your beginnings on how you got into, broadcast journalism and interviewing guests and talent, and then transitioning to creating your podcast, the Scenior Citizen Podcast.
Right, and I'm excited for this question, honestly, because every time I tell this story, it's always a side note, right?
Ooh, okay.
So now I get to sit here and tell my story with actually breathing in between, right? Mm-hmm. So I want to say I was born with it. Maybe it's Maybelline, whatever.
Okay.
Ever since I was a kid, I don't know if you grew up around here, if you ever went to Wanadu City.
Oh, yeah.
Right. You remember there was all the different jobs and everything, and my favorite was the TV station. I was telling the weather at 8 years old, and I was like, this is my calling, without even knowing it, right? When I got to high school, I went to Piper High School, and they had a radio station, 88.5 FM WKPX.
So, fun fact, don't mean to cut you off on there, but I've actually worked with Radio X at 88.5 WKPX.
Oh!
Sunrise, Fort Lauderdale, and all of Broward County.
Exactly. Yeah. No, you know exactly. And the impact that WKPX had on my life, because it was the first moment where I was like, I think this is what I want to do, Mm-hmm. I was very, very lucky to have that experience. I hosted the metal show. I hosted a hardcore show. I was DJing every, possible moment I could. But it wasn't a whole lot of talking on there. It was, just in between breaks, a little chit chat here and there between you and the co-host, and you move on and you play tracks. And it's why I'm such a nutcase about my segs between music. Even in my car at this point, I don't cut things off in the middle. So when I graduated, I was like, all right, I'm going to college. What do I do? And I went into broadcast journalism, just because at FIU, it's I got to study something. I wasn't meant to be a doctor. I wasn't meant to be a lawyer. Thank God I'm not any of those things, because it wouldn't end up very well for the clients. And when I was in school and we were doing these projects where we did have to be in front of the camera, I remember being just naturally good at it, not to have an ego or boost myself or anything, but even in auditions where we were auditioning all to be an anchors for a class project, I got picked.
Yeah.
And that's where I was like, oh my God, little me. And these are all things that I've noticed looking back. In the moment, it was I'm just doing this to do this. And I was happy doing it, but it wasn't I didn't know it was my calling at the moment. So fast forward my last semester of college, and I get an internship at Univision. I start working for their sister station, Galavision, which is a cable channel, working with their social media. And basically, we're coming to the end of this internship, and my boss is like, so what are you going to do? And I was like, I want to stay here. She's like, why didn't you tell me 2 weeks ago? I would have started looking for a position for you. And last minute, they were like, no, wait, we have a temp position for you, so you can stay here. And within the first couple of weeks of that temp position, my boss came up to me. She was like, hey, by the way, we have some time with Camila. I don't know if you're familiar with the Mexican group Camila.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was my first interview because she tells me, you have 15 minutes with them. And I'm like, can I interview them? She's like, do you want to be on camera? I was like, yeah. So we rent out a conference room in the building, not set up with lights or anything. We bring in a camera, we set it up. I have a producer with me, and he's probably like, oh God, this sounds horrible with the AC. And my first interview ever on camera was with Camila. And of course, I could probably look back at it and be like, oh my God, that was awful, because I was probably like super nervous. Mm-hmm. I've been meaning to go back to look at it.
You should at some point.
I should. I'm kind of scared too. I'm not going to lie. I remember I did a ton of editing to it to like kind of bypass how nervous I was. Mm-hmm. So I kept doing that. COVID hit. I was luckily still working at Univision. I've had the opportunity to interview Manuel Turizo, Carlos Vive, a number of stars that I'm just super grateful that, you know, it helped me not be nervous anymore. It helped me realize that these are just people. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's just a conversation. And I started developing my style of interviewing. So I don't make questions before. I don't write questions. I kind of just see what the person's about, you know, look at their Instagram page, see what they're up to, listen to the music if they're an artist, listen to the album. And then whatever in that moment, you know, comes up, that's what we're going to talk about, and that's what the interview is going to be about. Lo and behold, my entire career is in Spanish, and I speak English, if you haven't noticed.
Yes.
Right.
We noticed here on These Are Questions, yes.
Yeah, no, it's not an AI dub, right? I speak English.
I hope not. Well, you know, who knows with the robots now? You never know.
That's terrifying, by the way.
Yes.
No, so I speak English, and I was like, you know what? I need to do something in English, but if I'm going to do a project, a passion project, out of love, out of kindness, because it's hard to monetize. It's hard to make things come through. That's where the Senior Citizen Podcast was born. I had a background of going to local shows. I always loved alternative music. I grew up on Fall Out Boy, on Panic at the Disco, on Paramore. Not My Chem as much.
Okay,
you know,
okay.
Top secret there, but
I grew into that band more as an adult, you know? When it first came out, I was, okay, you know? But as an adult, I'm like, okay, I appreciate their music for what that is.
Yeah, no, I loved, like, Teenagers and the Black Parade and a song here and there, but I wasn't, like, a diehard My Chem fan. But anyways, that kind of music raised me. I went through my scene, my emo phases. I loved Black Veil Brides. Eventually, I listened to Blood on the Dance Floor, which I have huge regrets for. And I remember loving this local scene, but at that time in my life, I was so shy, so introverted that I never made friends in it. So this was something that, aside from having something in my portfolio in English, kind of healing that inner child, that inner teenager who wanted to make friends, and then just seeing the effects that it has on the community and how people appreciate it. It's just, it is what it is now, you know.
That's very cool. That's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing your story. It makes a lot of sense as I'm learning more about you in this interview and just getting to work with you in other professional projects in the past, right? It's really cool to kind of learn and see what you've done over the years and how you've got to your point now, which is cool. And I know more cool creative projects are coming for you in the future. So. And it's funny you mentioned that it came out of a passion project for love. That's how I feel with this show. Because this show, and I've mentioned it multiple times, this show does not make financial incentive. It's not supposed to.
It's hard to.
It is hard to, but not even that. Like, I didn't want this show to be like that. My focus of the show, and I've said this multiple times, and we've done it so far for 7 seasons straight, was to highlight talent that are coming through various means and channels, from established talents to people getting in the middle of the business to like relatively unknown / up and coming talent, right? And my goal was to give them a nice professional interview that they can use for their portfolios, and also to develop their own cadence and communication style when talking with guests. And I think you've learned through doing those interviews, and you've grown to be the talent that you've been so far. And I'm excited to see how those talentinations, I don't know, I'm losing my words. Oh, who knows? Words, sounds, things, questions. On a serious note, all your different skills that you've been creating are going to get more and more defined and refined as you're expanding yourself through that media space. And I know wonderful things are going to happen to you in the long term.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful project what you have going on. And
you.
From someone who does something similar, I know how much work goes into it, and I value that. When I say monetize, it's just because someday I would love to be broken even and not in the negatives, because putting on a production of such a caliber, it costs money.
It costs time.
It's money, resources, time, and it's not that we're trying to get rich off of this, but I would just like to be able to continue what I do and not be at a loss. I also forgot one last thing.
Sure.
Why I got into all this.
Like that's loaded. Yes. Why did you get into all this?
It's funny because, like I said, it's a retrospective thing, and I'm funny enough doing what my mom wanted to do, without her ever pushing it on me. She wanted to be a communicator. She wanted to be a journalist. Unfortunately, her life just didn't go that way. And when I started doing all these things, I see her excitement too. And then she's my rock, and she's the person who supported me every step of the way with everything that I'm doing. She's my harshest critic, but my biggest fan.
Aww.
And, you know, it's funny how things work out that way, because if she never pushed it on me. This is something I wanted to do, and it runs in my blood. Like how being Venezuelan made me want to go to pageants, but I'm 5'2", so that never worked.
Fair enough. And, shout out to your mom, being the number one supporter for it. And I'm going to break the fourth wall. She's in the studio as well. So shout out to your mom. So, yes. That's awesome. And thank you for highlighting that even more in depth there. And, I've listened to a lot of your episodes, and you've had some cool guests and cool bands that are up and coming, kind of the similar way with me with up and coming talents and people in the entertainment field. One of the questions that you ask on every episode of the podcast is that you ask them about like relationships, and specifically like what determines a green or red flag, right, in a person or in a situation. I'm going to reverse that on you, and I'm going to ask you, what is the ultimate green or red flag you have when dealing with a person?
So this is something that I learned, I want to say approximately 10 years ago at this point, because obviously the ones that I ask on my podcast are silly. They're for comedic purposes. They're from a random ick list where it's like, oh my God, they bite their nails. Is that a red flag? And those really aren't make it or break it kind of situations. I've been in a relationship for almost 9 years now. And the biggest green flag that stuck out to me with this person, and it made me analyze how I treat relationships with people in general going on, is going back to the relationship with their mother. Because you find, at least in my case with my partner, that was the first partner I had that loved their mother, that you can tell had a genuine friendship relationship with her, like not borderline creepy, but like, hey, you don't hate your mom, right?
Yeah, it's a positive, good relationship.
Exactly. And that to me, it is the biggest green flag, even in friendships, even because how you value family, that's first. And then how you treat other people, that comes second. Obviously, there's also one-off cases. Not everyone is perfect. You could have a family member who is narcissistic, psychopath, or whatever, and that's just not someone that's healthy for you to deal with in your life. And that's a case-by-case kind of thing. But in general, yes, if you care for your parents, to me, that is a huge green flag.
That's good. And it really is. Like, it really is one of the most important green flags to have, because when you're in any relationship, and these are relationship advices, these are questions, but just to kind of spitball here, you're going into not with the person who you're with from a relationship side, but you're going to be with the family. Exactly. And if there's a discourse with the family and it's not necessarily justified or valid there, then you're going to be going with I don't want to say the word baggage, but you're going to go with the trepidations that family may be dealing with. And that can cause a rip in the relationship. And it shows a lot of true colors, how they treat the parents and how they treat the family members. Yeah. I always think of the show, or in my actions on either social media or online or whatever, I think about okay, what would my mom think about this? And if my mom thinks, oh, this is good, then probably it's a good thing to kind of post up. But if she thinks oh, it's not really, she wouldn't really like that, then maybe, just maybe, you shouldn't be posting / doing that kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah. And 9 out of 10 times when I don't listen to that, it comes back around. So, yeah.
They usually know best, and it's a good criteria for what you're posting or whatever. I mean, I have a PTSD, I guess, because as a kid, I wasn't allowed to post things on Facebook. I grew up in the Facebook era.
Okay.
I wasn't allowed to really post things on Facebook, so I would write statuses and stuff, and that was fine, but no pictures and whatever. And obviously, now as an adult, I'm obviously, yeah, no, thank you for that. But as I was growing up and I started getting to those later teens and in my 20s, I was I I still think about like what my mom would think about the things I post. Sometimes I post things and I'm like, oh my God, my brothers follow me on here. Like, what am I doing?
And it's something to think about. It's like, yeah, it's like, family season, and it's like, just as they want to. Obviously, it's you do whatever you feel comfortable is for it, but it's something to think about in the back, and it kind of helps out in the long term. So.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. In my case, it's mostly just because I pole dance, and then it's like, oh my God, was this too much? But I usually try to keep it to tricks and then, more acrobatic stuff.
Yeah, and that's it. Like I said, whatever makes you feel comfortable with that, you'll know best whether it is something that's great or a little bit more on the risque side.
Exactly.
So I'm going to go with this question here. I'm going to ask you, if you were on a deserted island, okay, with nothing but either endless flaming hot Cheetos or endless taxis, not Takis, but taxis, which would you choose and why?
What are taxis?
Like taxi cars.
Oh, like a taxi car.
Yeah.
Not Takis.
Not Takis.
So I'm going to have to go with the taxis.
Okay.
Just because I'm not a huge fan of flaming hot Cheetos.
Okay.
I never really liked, I like spicy food, but for me, the spice has to taste good. And the spice on the flaming hot Cheeto is just gross to me.
Okay, fair enough.
So I'll go with the taxis.
Okay.
I hope I never end up on a deserted island because that would kind of suck.
That would kind of suck. And you just have endless taxis just sitting there.
Sitting around. I mean,
you could maybe build something out of it to get yourself out of the island. That's parts, but then you have to find for food. And depending on what island you're on, I don't know what food resources are there.
Probably a coconut or something.
Coconuts have a lot of different vitamins and minerals and different stuff.
Oh, I can live with a coconut.
Yeah, but the hard part is breaking into the coconut.
I'll figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, you could
just get a car to run over it.
I was just about to say, you to beat me to the punch there.
Yeah, no. Okay. There's not much nutrition in a flaming hot Cheeto anyway, so that wasn't going to help me.
Just spice.
Right.
Yeah, just spice.
Just bad spice.
Yeah,
that's going to give me a stomachache.
No relation to Ice Spice, just bad spice.
I love Ice Spice. She's a vibe.
She is a vibe. Hey, shout out to Ice Spice if you want to be on the show.
Shout out.
Probably won't, but hey, why not? You
never know. You're manifesting things.
Manifesting, and that's what we hear on These Are Questions. And sometimes that happens on the show where we have manifestations, and people have used this show for projects, and they've gotten gigs and different stuff. People have met people and had relationships from this show. I just asked questions for 7 seasons, and things just happen.
Exactly.
That's how it goes. Which, speaking of questions, if I gave you a $5 bill, can you split it 25 ways?
$5 bill 25 ways?
Yes.
I should be able to.
Okay.
I'm a communications major.
Yeah.
Same here. I went to finger painting school as far as I'm concerned. I barely made it past pre-calc, homie. $5 bill 25 ways.
Yes. Calculation here.
Yes. Would it be 25 cents each?
I
think it's 25 cents each.
Maybe. I didn't know how far the question was going to get. I didn't know I was going to have an actual thing. Hold on, we're searching this on here.
It's not 25.
Probably not.
No,
But
25 it'd be 20.
Maybe.
It'd be 20 cents each.
20 cents each? Okay.
Yeah, because 25 cents is 4 per dollar. 4 times 5 is 20. So it's going to be 20 cents each.
Yeah. See? You have the math brain.
I shop a lot.
What is it? A TikTok meme with girl math for a second there? It's the logic of that for a second there.
That's what it was.
Yes.
I was thinking about a sale and how the percentage off would work. If I'm going to be honest with you.
It works. It works on These Are Questions. Got to do it. Got to do what you got to do. Got to do what you got to do. I'm going to go more on numbers, but it's going to be a little bit different because I'm going to ask you, is it possible to run a marathon in 20 seconds?
A marathon in 20 seconds?
Yeah.
I sure don't think so.
That was sure, don't think so.
No, a marathon's 26 miles?
Yes.
Yeah, no, you can't run more than a mile in a second.
Okay. I mean, I interviewed a marathon runner, and I could say it because now I know where I'm going to place it in this episode, even though we're filming before, a little bit behind the scenes at the moment. But I interviewed a marathon runner, and I didn't ask that question because I was thinking maybe someone else will know that question, but maybe I should have asked a marathon runner in hindsight.
I feel like it was a trick question at this point.
Maybe. Who knows? These are just questions. The questions just come to me, and it fits for you, and I just answer them, and then we get the results. That's all it is.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I'm just gonna cross that off on that. Don't worry. Going back to the podcast though, to kind of as we're rounding off this interview. I want to talk about your first episode of the podcast and your initial feelings when you were creating the show and to where you have it now with your latest episode as of this recording here on These Are Questions.
So as I was creating the show, it was a fun process. Mm-hmm. I am very territorial out of the things that I make, right?
Yeah.
And that was one of the first times also that I sat down and I said, no, wait, I need help. I'm not a graphic designer. I want this to look professional. So I sat down and I looked around because obviously we're running on zero budget. And I got to work with an incredible graphic designer from Venezuela who got my vision right off the bat. Antonella, si lo ves, I love you. And yeah, that was just the first. And when you start seeing that branding kit and everything coming together, you're like, oh my God, it's real, it's tangible, So we had the logo. I found a studio. That was a huge issue as well because, again, no budget. And I didn't want to jump in and spend loads amount of money on something when I didn't even know how it was going to go.
Yeah, I agree.
And I luckily met Dan Day over from the Odyssey stations. Dan, also love you. Haven't seen you in a while. Who was gracious enough to lend me one of the radio studios so that I would have that awesome audio quality in the first couple of episodes. Obviously, it was a hassle to edit and put the video together with the audio and whatnot. Sitting down for that actual first episode, I didn't realize how scary it was going to be until I sat down because I don't prepare questions. So this was something new. This was treading in the new territory for me. I'm used to interviewing stars that have 10 years, 20 years under their belt. And they have songs that were hits on the radio. They have filled up arenas. And then I'm sitting down and talking to, no offense to Graves. Again, Graves, thank you for coming out to the first episode. But I was interviewing an average person. So it was time to switch gears. It isn't, how do you feel? What do we expect from a show from you? Now it's like, what do you do? How did you learn it? How did you get to your point right now? And I have never done long format. I am infamous for having my short interviews that are just straight to the point. I don't like, even when I'm writing, it's very straight to the point. It's not filled with a bunch of clutter and adjectives and stuff. I like, this is what you need to know, X, Y, Z, and that's it. So that first episode was scary. I sat down and, I started just making up things along the way, trying to see if I would make up segments along the way. I remember asking about tattoo talk and stuff, and because he had some cool tattoos. And yeah, looking at that and looking at where I am now, it is night and day. Because this project has helped me grow as an interviewer and thinking about what kind of questions I ask people, what kind of conversations. You also start learning more the ropes of the community that you're dealing with. I am super hyper-focused in music. Like, I cannot sit down and talk to a Hollywood star because I'm not involved in that world. And now I feel like I'm involved enough in this local scene to not only reminisce and nostalgic things, but look towards the future and look towards the present. So the most recent episode that came out is with Servants of Ruse, which, fantastic kids. I was 10 years older than them. So how fun was it for me to ask them about what's this local scene like now for them when it was totally different for me in the past. Kids nowadays have a problem finding a venue. When I was in the scene, we had the Talent Farm. It was an all-ages venue. So there's a lot of little nuances that are different, and then talking to these kids that are in bands and how they got together and what are their dreams. And yeah, they sit here and they have this project together and they get so much support, but at the same time, they're like, oh yeah, no, I'm going to go study cybersecurity just in case.
Yeah.
Right.
As a backup plan,
Yeah. So you learn so much. Like, I've uncovered so much more about these people that I would love to have those first couple of guests back, because it would be a totally different conversation now.
You can have, like, as a follow-up, it could be like the Senior Citizen Podcast. And we have the state of to catch up with our prior guests. So we'll have the state of and whoever is available to come out and tell me what they're up to now when they have something new. Okay.
Which is also super fun because it just feels like catching up with an old friend. And you genuinely feel so proud. I mean, I'm sure it happens to you too. When you see people come onto your show and then they're off doing something and you feel proud of them, especially when a lot of these kids are younger than me. And I see them, I mean, one band got sponsored for guitar strings and they were like, yeah, it's because we sent them your interview with us. Or they just keep coming out with music, or they book openings on tours and stuff. And you genuinely just feel so happy and proud for them. And to have them come back and talk about it, it's like, you're amazing. You're to me, you're a celebrity now,
Absolutely. And that's the best feeling, honestly, from like interviewing from shows and doing episodes and stuff. The best feeling is seeing where they are now and how the show and project elevated them to where they are now. I'm not saying I created the stars or created talent. No,
but everything's a domino effect.
Yeah.
And you don't know who saw that episode, who saw that podcast. They got the guitar strings because they sent it to the people because they were like, oh, our strings keep breaking. But it was a good opportunity for them. And it's media training, again, also in another way, because a lot of these people have never had a formal interview. They haven't sat down. And I make it my goal to make it a comfortable setting. I am not here to ask you the hard and or incriminating things. I am here for you to put yourself out there. And I remember with Servants of Ruse in particular, they were like 16, so a mom came with them. And the mom was so excited. She was like, thank you, like they're super shy and they opened up with you. And that made me feel like I'm doing my job. I'm doing what I want to do.
That's awesome. And like, that's an amazing feeling, like that trust in the relationship, professionally speaking, to have those comfortable interviews that are casual and fun and exciting, because it just brings up better episodes, but it also makes you feel good as the interviewer. It's just a cool, awesome feeling. And, you know, where do you want to see the podcasts go into the future? Like, now we're forward thinking here. Where do you want to see it go?
Well, the basis of the podcast has always been the nostalgia.
Okay.
So obviously right now the guests are local acts because that's what's accessible. And I love to give them that platform. I treat everybody the same when I'm interviewing. I don't care if you are Bad Omens or Falling in Reverse, or if you're the local band from West Palm Beach. I treat you all the same. I mean, for me, it's a personal passion dream project where I would love to see those bigger stars or those bands that I grew up listening to on the podcast eventually. So if one day I can book, you know, Pierce Seville on there, I would die. I would simply die. Like,
that's the spirit. No, absolutely. It's not an if, it's a when.
When they come on the show, because the whole idea of the show as well is to celebrate that emo scene nostalgia culture, and that's what I've always tried to push forward as well, so that, you know, tomorrow when Ronnie Radke decides that he wants to talk some crap on the show, I'm trying not to curse, when he comes and talks some crap on the show, it's not like, oh my God, she changed her format. It's like, no, now we get to talk to those people who made those childhoods for us, who got us through those teen years without even knowing it. So that would be one of the goals. I mean, the other goal is simply to just, as we were saying before, to monetize. I don't want to run on a negative forever. I want to be able to have a budget to help these bands, to give them things that they need, prizes. I mean, I run a tournament every quarter, and I would love to sit down and be like, hey, your prize is that you get to play a show here, or you get to, I don't know, here's a photo shoot so that your band can have some pro pictures of yourself or something. Obviously, I'd love for people to get compensated for what they do.
Sure.
So I can't look for this stuff around for like, hey, can I get this for free? Can I get that for free? That doesn't sit right with me. So eventually I would like just to have a budget to do more, to help more, to be more involved with the scene, and maybe someday open up a venue.
Okay, these are all, we're manifesting it now. I'm telling you, you're opening this up here on the episode of These Are Questions, but like, this is going to be a domino, and I don't want to say mark my words because, well, one, we're already recording it, so it's already marked anyway, but two, like, whatever happens moving forward, whatever you decide to do will work in tandem because you're already thinking about those interpersonal goals. You already think about what you want to do next. So now it's just a matter of just time and putting the effort towards it. Yeah. So it's happening. It's going to happen. And
fingers crossed.
Yes, fingers crossed. And, you know, I want to ask, like, for someone that wants to start in, like, just doing interviews and just actually trying to learn the methods of just professional interviewing and maybe creating their own podcast or maybe creating their own show, what would be the best piece of advice you can give for those up-and-coming talents that want to go on more of the journalism side and more of the interviewing side?
Well, obviously, yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. There's the production aspect. I would definitely recommend, you know, getting your hands dirty with a little bit of editing and production just so you know how it works and you know what you're going to like. It's all about trial and error. Things are never going to be perfect. You're going to say stupid things. You're going to mess up. You're going to wish you had done things differently. But everything is a learning experience. As far as interviewing, and it's what I think has worked the best for me, and everybody is different. You plan out your questions ahead of time, and that works for you, and these are questions, and you're not going to just sit here. You have a structure. But I think the most important thing for everybody that ever wants to be a journalist and ever wants to interview is to listen. Listening, you'd be surprised how many people don't listen when they're interviewing somebody. Like,
oh yeah,
I won't say names, but I remember seeing a colleague of mine that I respect, and she has had amazing opportunities, interviewing a singer. And the singer was very playful. So he said, I'm going to mess with her before the interview started. And when she was asking about the song, because it was a collaboration and stuff, this guy starts telling her this whole story about how they wrote the song on a cruise ship, right?
Okay.
Completely fake. But she was sitting there with a list of questions in her hand that she never addressed. Oh, really? Tell me about this. Even just play along with it, you know? Tell me about this cruise ship. Where were you going? And I remember watching it saying, oh my God, listen to him, for the love of God. Like, he is giving you stuff to play with, to joke around with, to make your interview different, to make it funny, to make it entertaining. And she was stuck to her list of questions. So I think it's super, super important for people to just listen to what their guest is saying. Even in regular day-to-day, get used to listening to the people around you and actually processing what they tell you before you respond or speak.
I'm just waiting for my pause now because, listen to the advice. No, that is incredible, great advice, because so many talents don't do that, especially from the interviewing space. And like, you see, you mentioned I have my restructuring of questions and all that kind of jazz, right? But I don't ask all these questions on here because I'm listening to the guest, and maybe you've already answered my question if I'm already pre-structuring it, or maybe I can modify a question in my brain to ask next after I'm listening and processing all the information. So a great interviewer knows to adapt out of the structure that they have currently designed.
Exactly. We, my friend and I joke around a lot because we say sometimes we go in with generic questions. And they're not generic questions. They're talking points.
Yep.
There's something to get things started because, I mean, for all I know, you could have a great conversation right off the bat, off the first question. And I have follow-ups to that. And it doesn't matter if I get to the fifth talking point. If we just talked about the first one, it's fine.
Yeah. If the interviewee is giving their heart and soul to your question, they're going to be more receptive to you going back and forth if you're listening to them and like actually caring about their story.
Absolutely. And I remember specifically, it happened recently. It was an interview that I was so proud of because I got to talk to Fonseca. It was an opportunity out of the blue. It was kind of a last minute, hey, we have space tomorrow. And I got the opportunity to go chit chat with him. And he was talking about his new album. It's 13 songs. You don't sit there and ask about each song. You don't, you sit there and listen to what he has to say about it. And one of the things that he had mentioned is that he was playing with different genres in this album, and he wanted to make sure he was doing things right. So also, like, a feature in the album is that it was the first collaboration with this one iconic group from Colombia. So I asked him, like, how did that happen? And he was like, I mean, I just pitched it to them and it happened. And I went back. I said, well, I think that's a testament to showing that you were doing things right in this album for them to agree. This man paused and was like, wow, I didn't think of it that way. Thank you so much. Those were really kind words. And it's because I was listening. I was paying attention to him. It was a conversation. It wasn't, how'd you write the album? What's your favorite song? What's it? He was very serious. Even after that, he started laughing. He was more relaxed. And I was like,
felt
wow,
comfortable. He was trusting you.
I was so proud of that one. And when it got like checked at work, the person who was checking it was like, wow, you're really good at this. And it's those little things that, like, again, it's a little ego boost, but it keeps you going. It's a labor of love. Obviously, that's my 9 to 5, but I don't have to do that. That's not in my job description. That's something I do for my own personal growth. And it's the things that keeps you going. And once you sit down and you have an interview with somebody where you're actually listening, you're going to see that it's life-changing.
It is. I 100% agree with that. And you can even say that, listening is a green flag.
It is a green flag. I didn't get into red flags. I don't know what a big red flag would be.
Not listening.
Yeah, but obviously, there's the opposites to everything. Like, you could hate your parents, and that's the red flag.
Sure.
But, like, red flag, shoot.
I would say a red flag, besides the color red, a red flag would be not being communicative of what your wants and needs / your struggles and difficulties are. No response is a response, right? And not being communicated to, whether it be your friend, your partner, to person, even to whoever you're interviewing with, is going to make a difference in the long term with any future decisions that may have. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and it is a red flag. I would say that's a beige flag, as I would say.
A beige? Oh, now we're getting other colors.
So beige flags are kind of like, some people can work with it and some people no. It's not blatant. It's iffy, you know? And for me, somebody who's not communicative, you don't know what kind of childhood they had. You don't know what upbringing they had, where they reprimanded for showing emotion, for communicating, for talking. Were they the kind of kid that their parents told them to shut up? So that means they got a lot of therapy to go to. It's not necessarily a red flag if you're trying to work through it. But yeah, the most important like years of your life are years 0 to 6, by the way. I took a class on that, and I don't blame anybody for anything at this point, because you don't know what kind of upbringing they had. You don't know what upbringing their parents had. Unfortunately, life is just a certain way, and everybody has their own story. I mean, red flags for me are like narcissists. That to me has like no fixing.
Yeah, no, these are arrogance at the moment. So just tooting my own horn here in the studio and everything. It's not my studio anyway. It's Co-op Studios.
It's our studio now. We're taking it.
That's right. You heard that. Co-op Studios. You heard that. We're taking over the studio. You're gonna record in the back right now and edit this. Yeah, don't cut this out. It's staying in here. Better not be cut out. I better not have a cut in the middle of this.
Right. It's just going to skip this entire part.
Put a segment there, bashing of this. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. All good. No, they're a wonderful studio. And you're a wonderful guest here on These Are Questions.
Thank you so much.
And this has been a great, exciting, kind of rapid-paced interview. And I really appreciate taking the time to interview me. I just have one question to ask you. One more question to ask you. One last question here.
All right, let's go.
These Are Questions. And the question I want to ask is that if you had to recruit 5 different scene band members to join you in the 2024 Olympics, which 5 band members would you pick and why?
So right off the top of my head, Jaime from Pure Surveil, because this man, I think he's like in his 40s and he's like throwing the bass all the way up in the air at shows. So it's like, yes. Can they be local bands too?
Yeah. It just has to be 5 scene band members. So that's one. So I'll give you that one. He could be like the javelin throw toss, like the one that just goes like that with the bass.
Yeah, no, I think he's an amazing addition.
Yeah, that's a good team pick. 4 more.
I can't remember his name, and I hate myself for it, but the lead singer from Boys Like Girls.
Oh,
because that man, I think it starts with an M. I don't want to say the wrong thing on here. But
that's fair.
This man sang for like 2.5 hours straight, so his cardio is in check because it was Revolution Live, sold out, and he had like a leather jacket on.
Okay, definitely could be a runner.
Yeah, no, he's a runner. He's a track star.
That's right.
Who else? Shoot.
Okay, that's 2. See, 3 more.
So there's this singer that I was like obsessed with since last year, who opened the Boys Like Girls concert, and her name is Lolo. Okay. And I would love to have Lolo just because I want to be her friend. I don't know her physical capabilities, but I want to be her friend.
Yes, we could put her maybe like the shot put or something,
Right.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure Olympic sports.
I feel like Hayley Williams would be fantastic at gymnastics.
Yeah, that would be cool.
And she jumps around, maybe we got this. Okay. I don't know. She kind of messed up her neck, her spine from headbanging, but
she'll be fine.
TBD.
She's fine. So
I got one more.
4. One more. I believe in you. You got this. Got this. No pressure.
There's a lot of pressure.
Oh, I was going to go. You just killed my joke, because I was going to say no pressure, then a little bit of pressure, then some pressure, then a lot of pressure. I've been doing that joke for like the past 3 seasons.
I am so sorry.
It's okay. Don't worry about it. It's okay. You made it's your own distinctive style here on These Are Questions. It's fine. Jeez Louise. I'm
just going to say Vic Fuentes.
Okay.
From Pure Surveil, because again, I want to be his friend. I want to be. I've been obsessed with him since I was like 12. Let's go. I don't think I'll be winning the Olympics with this team, but I'll have some great connections.
There you go. It's all about the memories.
Right.
It's just here for the fun. I'm just here for the sport. That's all.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's fine. Okay. All right.
I didn't say any local bands because I didn't want them to think I'm picking favorites.
Okay. You could say all the bands. I want to pick every single band member from all the local scene. So.
I don't know, because there's some of them that are like me aged. We just don't run the same, and the knees. And
that's true.
Yeah.
Knees are important. If anything, yeah. Okay. I would say knees are important. Knees are these. These are knees. These are knees.
These are knees.
These are knees. Yes. Knees are important. If anything you learn from this episode, that knees are important. Don't mess up your knees.
My left one is currently still recuperating from I don't even know what, but.
Oh, you need some yoga. You need DDP yoga.
We'll see.
You need DPY. I'll tell you after. Not a plug for DDPY, but I'll plug them anyway. They're great. It's great for rehab, so like it's good for knees.
Okay.
So yeah, I've used it for my
Appreciate
stuff. Yeah. We'll talk about it. But I want to finish talking about with you if you're here on These Are Questions, and by saying, Vicky, it's been a pleasure interviewing you on These Are Questions, and definitely get to learn about the psyche of what you do and why you do what you do, which is really cool. And I really appreciate you taking the time to be here, here at CoLab Studios here in Miami, Florida. I really appreciate it. But now the floor is yours. Anything you want to talk about, anything you want to discuss, anything you want to promote or do here before we wrap up this episode of These Are Questions, the internet floor is yours.
I'm going to wipe that internet floor. No, I'm kidding.
You can. It's yours. You do whatever you want with it.
So obviously, I want everybody to check out the Senior Citizen Podcast, even if they check out an episode or two, because these local bands, I work hard, but they work harder, and they deserve that support. If anybody does want to support me, they can follow the Senior Citizen Podcast, they can follow Galavisión, and they can follow my personal page at La Vicky Salas, where I post all the interviews and I promote stuff. And, I'm an amateur model, podcaster, interviewer, who knows what I'll do next.
Don't call yourself amateur. I went to communication school. It's a lighthearted podcast. No, don't call yourself that. You're a professional and you're doing amazing, and more awesome things are going to come to you in the time. So don't worry. You're not amateur or amateur or amicable. I don't know anymore.
I think I'm amicable.
No,
I think that means friendly.
I get a Google search.
No. I appreciate your kind words. I appreciate the space, honestly. Everybody go check out whatever other seasons of These Are Questions, whatever episodes are out at this moment, because this is a great space and you get to learn about some amazing people, and then obviously get to network, and it's a resource to you on top of it.
Thank you. I appreciate the plug there. And with that, we'll wrap up with this episode. I just want to say thank you to all our viewers watching and all of our listeners listening, whether it be on youtube.com, Spotify, or anywhere else you get your podcast. We really appreciate it. And it's going to end off by saying you have been watching / listening to These Are Questions. Questions. Have a good night, everyone. Or good morning. Or good afternoon. I don't know when you're watching this show.
Have a good 3 a.m.
Have a good 3 a.m.
I feel like that's a tough time for people.
That is a tough time for a lot of people. But if you're watching my show and if you're watching Vicky's show, you're going to have less of a tough time at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Exactly.